So, we do these incredible series, education components, and all a part of the Unite for Our community, and we can't do them without our sponsors. So a huge shout out to our presenting sponsor, Wes Pharma. They are our presenting sponsor for July all the way through to December. And then our supporting sponsors as well, Daiichi-Sanyko, Merck, Seagen, and Lilly, all have just made this, education session so accessible to our community and helps us find really incredible, powerful speakers. So we can't do it without them. So thank you.
And I think we should also give a little plug for the Ask the Experts that we are hosting next week, as well as a reminder, because we know before we know it, we'll be hustling into the holidays and we'll forget. So Sue, I think you're hosting our friend Dana from Anna Ono, which I think this is another great topic that came up. How to choose the right bra.
I know. And Erin, I don't know if I told you this, but I didn't wear a bra for 13 years. And she jokes with me all the time. I am her perfect poster child to why you need to wear a bra. And she would joke with me. So she's special, dynamic, has so much incredible information, but it's all on the fit, it's not you, it's your bra. And then just to make us feel good and, sexy and everything, just, feeling like it's empowering. And she does that through her line of clothing. Really beautiful.
Oh, they are beautiful, and they are the softest material I have ever felt in a bra, I have to say. And you're right, they're just really just beautifully made and crafted, and it's truly an art. So we're really excited to have her. So that is next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, streaming live on Facebook. So you can see that event on our Facebook page. You can register for it, but no, you can always just tune into our social media and you'll see that there. So that's really exciting.
Perfect. Good. Well,
all right.
Our guest front and center. Would you like to do the introduction there, Erin?
Absolutely. I would love to if you want to highlight Michelle. So we are really in for a great, not only discussion this evening, but practice. And our topic for this evening for our speaker series, decolonizing yoga. So tonight we have Michelle Khoury. She is a wellness entrepreneur and former pharmaceutical executive with more than 20 years of healthcare experience, holding several global and regional roles as part of cancer drug launches. Her journeys led her to incorporate her background and passion for yoga to open, and I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly, Yogamazia.
Yes.
I mean, it just flows. I really love that. Yogamazia. I love that. Which is a studio dedicated to pregnant persons, children, and families. She also serves as a health and wellness educator with Integrative Health at Children's Health of Philadelphia, and was Ambassador of the Year in 2022 for her work with Yoga Gives Back. Yogamazia serves as a sanctuary for students to embrace their feminine energies and realize their inherent peace through the practice of yoga and their values of grace, which I love. Gratitude, respect, authenticity, community, and equity. So I am more than happy to welcome our special expert this evening, Michelle. So thank you so much for being here with us. We are thrilled to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so great to be here. And I'm honored to be able to have this opportunity to speak to you about such an important topic, and then also spend some time with you and share practice with you as well. So I'm really excited. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and let me know if this works. Okay, can we see that?
Yep, all set.
Okay, great. Right, so thank you everyone, and welcome. I have worked in this space for so many years, and it's been really a pleasure for me to come back to the community that I know and love, and be able to do this discussion in a completely different light from what I'm accustomed to in the past. So as Erin mentioned, my background is actually in healthcare. I'm a pharmacist by training, And my master's is in clinical research administration. So I spent many years in the clinical research arena, in the pharmaceutical world, and I have Ph.D. in public health. So my background was really from a scientific, analytic research perspective, working in the healthcare first as a pharmacist and then working in pharma. And the majority of my career was actually in research and the marketing and approvals and medical education of cancer therapeutics, and for some of the companies that you saw on your sponsor slide. So, and then I a few years back, I opened Yogamazia to serve families such as yourself, to really try to bring more yoga into the community in a way that is more embracing and enlightening, and we're going to go through some of these factors as we speak later on. And so, as Erin had mentioned, we focus primarily on pregnant persons, children, and families, and really giving them that opportunity to learn and practice yoga in a different way, engaging, not worrying about the competition, not worrying about all the other things. And this picture, the background is from our studio that's based in Richboro, here in Bucks County. So tonight we're going to be talking about decolonizing yoga and what that really looks like, not only for me as a practitioner or even an educator and other practitioners, but also from the perspective of the patient and what that looks like and how they can think about it in a different light. And we're going to talk about that. But first, we'll start with, what is that definition? So as I was putting this together, I thought, you know what, let's just start from the basic where everybody's sort of, at the same level of what they think, we know. And, I went to Merriam-Webster, and it says that yoga, if we look at the second definition, which is what most people relate, is a system of physical postures, breathing techniques, and sometimes meditation derived from yoga, but often practiced independently, especially in Western cultures, to promote physical and emotional well-being. And we're going to talk about that because, the very first definition actually says it's a Hindu theistic philosophy. And, that particular part of the definition has led to a few misperceptions or misunderstandings. And I think, as we go along, I'll explain what that means. So this is sort of the physical outward definition, right? And a lot of people think it's very physical. But if we go to the philosophical aspect and we look at the sutras, which is sort of like the background from many hundreds of years BC, we know that from his history and what we understand, it's really stilling what goes on in our minds, those fluctuations. You might have even heard about monkey chatter. And how do we get to that? So that it gets for us to be able to understand our own self, our own true nature. The second point here says a practical way of living happily in the world while gradually moving to one's consciousness inward. And so we're going to talk about what is that moving and what is that inward aspect. Offers individual empowerment and spiritual awakening. So that could mean many things as well. Ultimately, it's the science of the mind, union with the self. And again, you see a lot of words that really relate to that. Own true nature, one's consciousness, individual empowerment. So that word unity really comes to, harmonizing our mind, our body, our spirit. So we're going to start from that foundation and go from there. So before we get into some of that, though, what are the benefits? So we and this can be in the context of within cancer patients and also outside of the cancer community. In general, we know that, and certainly having developed drugs that lead to certain effects, cancer patients experience extensive treatments, and this, because of some of these effects, it affects their quality of life. It affects your whole well-being in a sense. And some of these patients use complementary or alternative treatments. Yoga is one of them. to cope with that, right? And whether it's from a mental perspective, an emotional perspective, or whether it's more physical, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So from my perspective, and from a lot of, and you see this with Unite for Her actually as well, I love seeing these integrative approaches to how we would even try to cope with some of the aspects within our lives, and cancer being one of them. So it's not to say that you can it's just only yoga, right? We have so many other, aside from our, treatments, the physical chemotherapy or radiotherapy or any other more, where we think it's more medicinal and therapeutic, there are the non-medicinal approaches and the alternative approaches that we think about. And I think when you think about that from a holistic point of view, and going back to that definition of unity, what brings your body, your mind, your spirit to become one? And this is where the benefits of yoga come in. So mind-body therapy exercises, from an overall historical perspective, there's been lots and lots and lots of studies. There's a lot of yoga research out there that's been shown to demonstrate significant benefits. And this is across different types of cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and other cancers included. They show improvement in your psychological quality of life, reduction in symptoms such as anxiety, depression, fatigue, improvement in our sleep, strength and flexibility, and then just overall relaxation and being able to help us to cope. But as we think about cancer, yoga in the cancer community, what we find is that, there's a hesitance sometimes to even approach it for many different reasons. And so what I want to focus on tonight is how we create a more inclusive and diverse practice, and across the community, to think about it from not just me as a practitioner or Unite for Her as an educator, but also from the perspective of the patient and their families. And so I'm going to walk you through 5 different determinants or different factors that affect how we look at yoga in general, and what we can do as individuals to just consider it in a different light. The first is acknowledging its Eastern roots. There are a lot of misperceptions around yoga, and you saw back in the first slide where we spoke about, that dictionary definition was a Hindu philosophy, and that is correct. We need to acknowledge the Eastern origin. Yes, they're also, mainly primarily from India and Hindu aspects, but there are other parts of the world where you can find the origins as well, and mainly from the East, whether that's Asia or even some parts of Northern Africa. But as a general approach to help alleviate some of these misperceptions, you remember the first one of my slides, also after we spoke about the definition from the sutras perspective, is a science of the mind. And so yoga, what we need to start also embracing is that it's really a structured scientific framework, and it's really an embodiment practice. It's not necessarily related exclusively to any one religion, and it really incorporates a lot of diverse traditions and faiths across really a lot of parts of the world when you really look at the history. So that's the first piece that I think, in terms of thinking about how we would approach this and whether it would be something beneficial for us. I think creating that comfort around some of the hesitance, that's a place to start. And then the other aspect is really to think about it more than just the physical. In fact, when you really look at the overall meaning, yoga actually incorporates 8 limbs. And this is where we go back to it being an embodiment practice. It really is a practice for you. It's a form of self-care for us, self. And when we think about those 8 limbs, it is no different from what we, regardless of what our faith is, what religion we might be following or anything, it's really, again, how we live our life. And these 8 limbs, of these 8 limbs, the physical aspect you see in the 3rd bullet here is really just one of them. The first 2 being how we live our life socially, our social ethics and behaviors, and our personal ethics and behaviors. And this really speaks to, just normal, typical things that we would do. Do not lie, do not steal, not creating attachment around certain things, non-violence, practicing that, how we take care of our bodies, ourselves, our cleanliness, our happiness, how we internalize what, self-study and devotion to what we're doing, Then there's the physical element. And so we'll put that to the side for a minute. But there's also breath regulation, pranayama, and we'll talk about that, and we'll practice a little bit of what that might look like. Coming down to internalization of the senses. This is now, how do we look within and withdraw from the outside world? And that helps us to focus and concentrate. And when we get to that point, maintaining that focus, and that's where meditation, that's how we're able to sort of maintain a meditation practice as well. And all of that, at the end of the day, what I consider is that we are really aligning to achieve that complete absorption. And when I say that, I mean in the sense of, are we really, for ourselves, like we feel like we are now content within ourselves. And so that is where the definition of yoga really stems from, that union with the self. And that's where that unity is. Another aspect that I think really takes a lot of this into account, if we go back to that original practice of unity, okay, with us, and not thinking about it from a disability point of view. And when I say disability, I don't mean physical, I mean hindrance. And using those tools within yoga to embrace a practice with a social justice mindset. There's so many things going on in the world today, okay? From environmental changes to, gender issues and racial issues, how can we bring all of that together using those tools and those traditions to now fight for what we believe in? And from a perspective of, I would say as well, taking in those 8 limbs that we were talking about earlier, nonviolence, being truthful and using those aspects and that philosophy. And also creating this mindset of yoga for all, for whatever reason, cancer patients sometimes think, well, I can't do that because it's so physical and I just don't have, my body is just not feeling this way, or I don't think I can move this way. And I think it's behoove of all of us to really emphasize on that education of that concept that, yoga can be for everybody. And, not everyone in total, yes, for all, but body, regardless of what your shape is, what your physical ability is, what those other determinants are. Because what we've seen in the media point of view, and that it's very westernized, tall, thin, flexible white women or white males. And so we need to kind of shift. We need to shift and come back to, okay, the origins of this practice are from the Eastern world. And when you look at all of those, they're different bodies, different people, and we are all different. And so how do we help amplify, the history and bringing back to and acknowledging those roots, as I mentioned earlier, and amplifying the voices of BIPOC patients so that they don't feel like when they look at something that this is not for them, and helping to change that perception. And this is where referrals come in and within our community, so we when you look at the media, you see a particular picture. And if you don't see yourself, you start to think that you're not really, you can't relate to that. So we need to start sharing that information and educating on all of those concepts so that people feel welcome in the practice and that they want to try. They think, oh, this might not be too bad. And then lastly, how do we ensure accessibility? That is the key, probably the more or the highest, all of them are important, but I think, when we think about creating this inclusive practice, we have to meet our patients where they are. And that means that being able to practice, especially from a physical element, regardless of what they have. A lot of people think you have to have a particular clothes, you have to have a yoga mat, and you have to, put everything on and go to a studio and do yoga. that's not necessarily the case, right? So, a lot of practitioners can actually do it at home. We are talking on Zoom today. There's some, from a mobility perspective where we have to help them, and we can still do those stretches in their bed, and using existing. And when I say props, people think it's okay. You need a block, and you need a strap, and you need a bolster. Yes, these are all tools that we use within our practice and within, a typical studio setting, and we can certainly bring that to our patients. But when patients are at home, what do they have? Well, you can use a book for a block, and you can use a pillow to go on the floor with you. You can use the table. Today, we will actually practice with the chair. You can use a wall. You can use a belt. How do we think about, doing those and doing it and incorporating it from a trauma-informed approach, meaning that we are meeting their needs to that specific setting. So, I'll end with, why should a patient consider yoga? Of course, we'll premise it that there's no scientific, as with most of some of these integrative approaches, there's no scientific evidence that, proves that yoga can cure or prevent any type of cancer or any particular disease in general. But I think we can consider, certainly that it is one of those natural approaches to help relax and calm our minds to, better cope with your illness. In the same sense, for those of you who are on, for example, chemotherapy or take other medications, that it can help reduce some of those symptoms and side effects that are related to that. Some of that being pain, nausea, the fatigue that comes with it, the lack of sleep. And sometimes, it helps patients move around a little bit more quickly and easily after surgery, because when we, if you don't move your spine, often you tend to get, very stiff, and you start, it may even worsen some of the symptoms that within the body. And so we're trying to work around that and make it more flexible for our patients to be able to practice as well. And then in general, just helping us be in a better mood and enhance our overall well-being, coping with stress, anxiety, and depression. And again, these are all advantages to the practice as a whole, but more so for patients who may be in a particular situation and circumstance where they may not be able to come out of their house to go to a practice, or maybe they're, they may have to, be more bedridden. It just depends on what's going on, but we can always fit it to that. And I think if patients know that, then they're open to embracing trying it more, and then even practicing and developing their own practice. Again, it's not just the physical, it is an embodiment practice, right? How do we take the aspects that fit us, whether it's more breathing, whether it's the postures, whether it's the mindfulness, the meditation, the focus, the internal, internalization, whatever works for us, to then help us to go from there and to create that unity that we're looking for, and overall complete absorption. So I will leave you with some of these thoughts to ponder on. And then, just before we go into a short practice, I wanted to pause here and allow an opportunity for any questions, comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. I do love listening to you, first of all, speak, because you have a very soothing voice. And second of all, just addressing for everybody. It really resonates with me, because I think we have, sadly, some of the fad organizations like the Lululemons, and that really just took this and promotionalized it, I guess. Is that the right word? Made it just a fad instead of the science and the history that it was started on, and now all of a sudden, you're right. Everybody thinks that you have to be this thin, skinny, white woman to do yoga. And I'm glad that you are addressing it for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Looks like Annie has a question. Annie, you can come off. We know we have a small enough group.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for having having this. This is very timely for me. So nice to meet you, Michelle. Good to hear your voice, Sue and Aaron, and loved last week, the fundraiser. I recently moved to Phoenixville, and lately, so I have metastatic, but I'm doing extremely well. And lately I'm not, and I'm 61. So I'm going to kind of lay out the foundation. I work remote, sit at the desk, stand at the desk all day long. And I noticed I've been very hunched over lately. And I'm a walker, but more stiff. And I think a lot has to do with 5 years ago, I was much more active than I am now. But I also think 7 years of treatment adds to this. I don't want to blame the the treatment, because that's what's helping me. Faith is helping me. Organizations like this are helping me. But I just looked into doing yoga because my anxiety is high, more high than it has ever been. And I'm not as flexible like that. And I'm still walking, but I find on my walks, sometimes I'll take a call. Sometimes I'll be thinking about everything I have to do. Like so my question, with that said, giving you a little bit of background with that, where would you start? Would you start like a beginner's yoga? We have a yoga room where I live, which is pretty amazing. Nobody uses it. Just a video of like basic, where would you start? Because my fear is if I don't catch it now, there's always going to be new medicines. And they're like, I'm going to be around for a long time. I'm fighting through this. But if I don't get a hold of this feeling very tight and hunched over, it's going to get away from me. And so the only thing I can think is to continue to walk, to eat well, take your medicine, have faith. But I need something. And this came at a time very timely for me. So where do I start? And I'm tiny. I'm like 5'1", about 110 pounds, give or take what I eat that day. But I don't know if it's being 60. It could be a lot of things. And then I'm done. Now I'm done talking. Sorry.
First of all, Annie, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And I agree with you. You are strong and you have a long way to go. I was listening to you talk, and I think, from what you're saying, and we're actually going to do a little practice today that will be beneficial for you in the sense of if you're sitting at that desk all day, well, you're already on the chair. So they're just, I used to do the same thing. I'd be sitting on Zooms and people will literally see me moving around and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing my practice. I'm listening to you, but I'm doing my practice at the same time because I need to move my body. There are two things that I wanted to just emphasize. One, it's great that you're walking. Walking, first of all, it gets us out there in nature. It gets us closer to Mother Earth, and we're able to sort of internalize that, that limb that we were talking about. Being out in the open and the fresh air helps with that. So, one of the things that I would, try to do because it's the same, right? We go outside and there's so many other things. The first thing I try to really bring my senses to are just enjoying breathing the air. Is the sky, is the sun shining today? How are the leaves? Right now we're in the fall, and we're seeing the change in the nature and the weather. Sure. Taking our mind to somewhere else that would give us a little bit more of, an opportunity to then start to still it. And when I say that in a more meditative way, when you start to, practice that, and it's really like, you can't do it overnight, but the more that you do it, and when you think and you start to think about all the distractions, just come back to that. Oh, the leaf is orange, and then start to kind of focus, bring yourself back to where you are in that present moment. Okay. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing that I would, and we're going to do this as well in the chair, walking is very good, but the piece that we need to really consider when it's, we think we need to be flexible, and where the flexibility needs to be is in our spine. We need to keep moving it in the different directions. And we're going to do some of that today. And I'll show you just very simple things. I do it in the shower basically every morning, just to get that spinal fluid moving, because that is where we start to feel stiff and tight. Just right down at our tailbone, and then our pelvis gets stiff, and then our hips and then it just radiates from there.
Right.
And there's simple things that we can just do and integrate into our life if we do it enough times during the day, because walking, you're just moving in one direction. Right?
Sure.
And so what we need to do is get that spine moving in different. We need to rotate. We need to get it into different directions. So, and we're going to practice some of that.
Okay.
But those are the two things I would highlight at least. And then as you start doing those small steps, it just weaves into you. It's like I said, I've been doing some of these since I'm pregnant, and I just continue. It starts to become automatic. And when you start small, you would notice that you do it longer and longer each time. Same thing with the walk. When you start to walk mindfully, and wherever it is, you will realize that, oh, wait a minute, I walked for an hour and I didn't think, you know what I mean? So it just starts, small steps.
Okay. Thank you. This is great. Thank you.
I think there's a really great, I love that question. And I also love Dawn's comment in the chat, because I think, Dawn, you're feeling a lot of what we're probably all feeling. We all wish we had your calmness and peacefulness, Michelle. But I think what we're also learning is we can get there. We can bring more calmness and peacefulness. That goal that, Dawn, yes, that we are all seeking is very much achievable by just incorporating some of this practice. Yeah.
Absolutely. It doesn't happen overnight, guys. And, for me, I still feel like I'm not even doing enough. I started my journey with yoga when I was pregnant with my second. I have three girls, three daughters. And so my second daughter is 8 years now. And, I was in the corporate world in pharma. The stress related to that, right? If you think about, getting all the data together and how we have to get to the launch and all the different questions that come in, oh my goodness, this side effect, this, and putting everything together, that's and just like any typical job, it's a little bit. So it took years for me to really start to kind of let go. And the same thing with, as I was saying earlier, it takes a while to, when you realize, oh, wait a minute, now I actually just sat in silence for a whole hour. That didn't start yesterday, right? But with me personally, I noticed that, if you give yourself the time and you really dedicate it, and we spoke about that in one of the ethics, right? The devotion. You have to want it. You have to be open to it. And then as you do it, slowly but surely, you'll see the subtle changes.
I love that. Yeah. And like I said, we all needed that reminder that, yes, this stuff doesn't happen overnight as much as we wish it would. So that's always good.
And that's good.
Any other questions for Michelle before we move into our practice? Okay. I think we are all ready to move with you, Michelle.
Not
Prepped and ready.
if we don't have any more questions, and we could certainly take some at the end as well. I'm going to just move my chair back so that you can see me. And so, all right. Are you guys okay? Can you see? And I'll try to get my feet for you to see when the time comes. All right, good.
That looks great.
Of course, my chair is faced this way just so that I can you can see how I'm moving my body, but certainly you don't have to turn sideways. You can keep looking in the direction that you are. But before we actually start with some of the physical, I want to come back to exactly what I said earlier about internalizing. So let's just start to get ourselves situated, to bring ourselves back to the present moment. So I will invite you to, just sit comfortably in stillness for a minute. Look to see where your feet are, if they can get below your knees, and then just place your hands gently onto your knees. And if you're sitting, if you want to use the back of your chair to lean onto that as well, but start to gently relax the body and come to a moment of stillness. And start to notice your breath. Maybe even close your eyes or just shift your gaze to somewhere that's, slowly in front of you. And as you breathe, start to feel your body soften. Your breath may be a little bit fast-paced right now because your body's starting to adjust. So start to let that breath shift to a more even rhythm. Take a breath and lift the chest, lift the spine, and then as you exhale, start to soften the neck, drop the shoulders, let your hips sink into the chair, and let your feet just connect with the earth. And we're in the season of change. This month in particular, we tend to focus with the holidays coming up on gratitude. I'm going to just offer that word to you tonight. And maybe start to think about an intention that you have, something that you might be grateful for, that you want to focus on as we just share this space together for the next 15 or so minutes. As you think of that gratitude, I invite you to remind yourself to have gratitude for yourself. Yoga is unity with the self. And so I ask you to just give yourself some compassion as we reflect together on our breath, being grateful for the air that we're breathing, and letting yesterday and tomorrow go. Where are you right now? And when you're ready, you can gently open the eyes, coming back to this moment. And so we'll start with a little breathing exercise before we move into any stretches. And I'm going to shift myself forward so that I can better demonstrate it. But, with us thinking about gratitude, I will teach you one of our mudras. Mudras are hand seals. So you might see people sitting, with particular, it's the sense of the fingertips touching together in some form. And the mudra that's reflective of gratitude, Anjali Mudra, is placing your hands together as though it's in a prayer position. You see this a lot. And when we do this, we are not only just being grateful to ourselves, but you're showing the person in front of you that you are also grateful for them. And so I invite you to place your hands together, lifting the body, lifting the spine as best you can, taking a nice deep breath in, sitting up nice and tall, breathing out, and then holding your hands as close to your heart as you can get. And with that next inhale, take your hands up to the sky. And then exhale, spreading out your arms like wings, and then bringing it back together in a full breath. So let's try that again. Inhale, take your hands up. Exhale, just spread your arms out, open your chest, open your heart, and then come back together. And just start to move with the flow. And as you're doing this, I call this thankful breath, with your Anjali Mudra. Think about that intention that you were setting earlier on what you are grateful for in this moment. As you're going through this entire practice, keep your mind on that. Try to just let the external world drift away for a little bit and try to be in the present. And then we'll all come back together and we'll meet with our hands at our heart, sitting in this mountain. The mountain pose is just stillness, us standing with our hands at our sides or our hands in front of our hearts. And so just take a nice deep breath and release the arms and just let them sit in front of you on your side. Good. Right, so I always start up with a little warm up, we do like a full body movement, and we can do this standing, or for those of you who sit at the desk a lot, we can do this sitting as well. And so I'll show you both ways, and, I invite you to practice the one that you think works for you tonight. And we'll start with our feet. So, just gently take your feet, lift your heel off the ground and roll your ankles. You may even pick up the whole foot and take it off the ground and just roll your ankles in one direction and then in the other direction. And when you're ready, you can place that down and then pick up the other foot or pick up the other heel and do the same thing. And then we'll just move up the body. So we'll try to move our knees. So just, give your knees a little bit of a hug. You're just hugging it in and just go in one direction and then shift your body in the other direction. For those of you who may want to stand, I'll invite you to do that as well. You can just come to the back of your chair and really just, place your hands on your hips. You can keep them at your side, and let's start to just move our hips. And here's where we start to wake up the spine. So just do little hip circles. You might, maybe it might be easier to just shake them left and right. You can go in a circle, or you can go front to back. Just moving, keeping your body centered as best you can. If you're sitting, you can do the exact same thing. We'll just move our bodies, or we'll just come up to our shoulders. And so you can place your hands on your shoulders and just start to rotate them from front to back, back to front in different directions. You might even take swimming arms and just, take a few laps. And then don't forget to do your backstroke as well. And then from here, we just do our last movement in the neck. So sitting up nice and tall, keeping the spine lifted, and then just shake your head yes. And then gently shake it no. Yes, I'm open to this practice and this stillness. No, I will release all of the external aspects of the world that I don't want in this moment. And then give yourself a few neck circles in one direction and in the other. And as you do all of these and you practice this always move with your breath. You know, every inhale and exhale, be intentional about how you're moving your body with those breaths. From here, we'll start to get into a little flow. So if you have the opportunity to come to about, just halfway or closer to the edge of your chair, you can take your hands, place it into your, onto your knees, and then inhale, lift the body, open the heart, take a deep breath, and let's sit in the stillness in our sitting mountain. And with your next inhale, lift your hands up to the sky. And then with your exhale, gently, slowly fold over. Maybe you might just hang your hands to the ground. You can probably catch your elbows and just use it as support. Whatever feels good for you, take a breath here. And then with that next inhale, take those hands back up. And then place it to your knees. We're going to inhale for a cow. So inhale and just draw your shoulders open towards the back. And then just push your belly out a little bit. Let your hip kind of stick out, the butt in the back there. And look up to the sky, or maybe just straight ahead of you. And then exhale, you can round your back, look towards your belly into cat pose. Inhale again, into cow. So you're really just moving your shoulders, moving your hips. And then if it's within your practice, you can even start to just move your upper body in a way that might feel good for you. Listening to what your body is telling you to do. You might, if you want to go and do bigger circles or just small circles, it's fine as well. And then once we feel that we're a little bit settled in our hips, take those hands up to the sky. Reach up nice and tall with that inhale. And then as you exhale, drop it back down and find a grip behind you, whatever that is for you. And as you look ahead of you, inhale, and then try to push yourself away. Let those shoulders draw back a little bit. You don't have to press too hard. Looking ahead of you, and then as you breathe, come back to center. We're going to do that 2 more times. Inhale, just press against the chair towards the outside. And then inhale, come back to center. And then 1 more time. Inhale. And then come back to center. Good. From here, we're going to take a little twist. So we're going to turn to the sides of our chairs. So if you're facing forward, we'll move to our left first. Just shift your seat and your knees and take your hands and grip it to the back of the chair. And as you inhale, you're going to turn your body with it towards the back of the chair. So we're just getting the spine to move gently. And then exhale, look back to the outside. Inhale. Look to the back of the chair. Exhale, look to the outside. And then 1 more time. Inhale. And then exhale. Good. From here, we're going to go straight into Warrior 1, a little adapted version. So we're going to come towards the end of the chair. Take 1 foot if you can. If not, you can sit like this and do the arm movement. Or if you would like, you feel good, just drop your one knee on the outside. And, you can bring the back foot, towards the back or just a little bit to the side. It depends on how comfortable you feel. We're going to place our hands onto our hips and then inhale, lift up. So you're just going to let this outer leg drop. And inhale, maybe look to see where the front leg is, you know, that the ankle is just below the knee if it can, and just breathe here. Maybe you might, with the next breath, lift your hand up into the sky. And just breathe. And then with the exhale, maybe you might want to go for a twist again. So just open those arms out and then look towards the chair. And take a breath here. And then with the next inhale, come back to center. So we'll do a little flow here. So inhale, lifting the spine, lifting tall, exhale, just take a little twist. Inhale, come back to center. One more. Inhale, come back to center. And then gently bring your knees together. And we're just going to shift to the other side. So I'm here. So now we do the same thing. Sit up nice and tall in your seated mountain. Take your hands and place them to the back of the chair. Then look towards the outside. Inhale. And then exhale. Shift your upper body towards the back of the chair. Inhale. Look towards the outside of the chair. Inhale, look towards the back of the chair. And do that one more time. Good. From here, we're going to try to go into warrior one. So just let that outer leg towards the edge of the chair drop and hang down. Then your inside leg will be knee over ankle. And we might just sit with our hands on our hips and lifting our chest up as much as we can. Inhaling, opening your heart. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And then maybe with that inhale, you might take your hands up to the sky. Saying to yourself, I am a warrior. I'm strong. I'm brave. I can be peaceful as well. This is the peaceful moment that you're doing here. With your next breath, if you have your hands up and you'd like, you can open it out to the side, looking towards the back of the chair. And then inhaling, coming back to center for us to do a little flow a couple times. So looking towards the back. Inhaling back to the outside of the chair one more time. Exhaling towards the back. And then coming back to center. Good. And then slowly bring those knees together, feet together, and come towards the middle of the chair again. And from here, we'll do exactly as we'll wind down in the same way that we started. Taking your hands, making sure that your feet are nice and stable on the ground. Look to see where your ankles are, if they're below your knees. Just have your hips be nice and relaxed into the seat of the chair. Inhale, take your hands up. Exhale, just let your upper body fold over. And as before, you can just let your hands drop to the floor. Maybe you want to catch your elbows. Just breathe here in this moment. Inhale, take those hands back up to the sky. And then exhale, we'll end with a little balance moment. So inhale, if you would like to, you can lift one knee in up to above the chair. You can keep your hands clasped and then hug the knee and hold it. Lifting the chest, opening the heart, giving yourself that gratitude. And then exhaling, taking your foot down, inhaling, lifting the other side. Taking a couple breaths here. And then exhaling. We'll try that again. 2 more rounds. Inhale the other leg. Maybe you might want to challenge yourself and let your hands go. Place it onto your hips. Breathe here. and then come down, and then take it on to the other side. Inhale, lifting that leg, bending that knee. Take a breath, and then release. Good. And then just lift those arms back up to the sky. Exhale, just let it out. We'll do that one more time. Inhale, take your hands up to the sky. Exhale, let it out. And then as you start to reflect on this practice, I invite you to bring your hands back into that prayer position. Anjali Mudra, bringing your hands as close to your heart as you can get it. And start to settle in the original intention that you had at the beginning. So take a few breaths here. And we'll take a few breaths, opening our heart in the same way that we started. So inhaling, taking our hands up to the sky. Exhaling, opening them back out. Really open your chest, open your heart. And then come back to center. One more, inhale. Exhale. Okay, maybe we do one more. Inhale. Exhale. And as you come back to center, take a moment to find that stillness. Being grateful for the moment that you're in right now. Giving yourself that gratitude, that compassion. And I am certainly grateful to be able to practice with you this evening. With that gratitude, I honor you. I wish you peace. I wish you happiness. And most of all, I wish you love. Bowing to you in gratitude and grace. Thank you so much.
That was wonderful. Thank you. So, pardon me, because I am so relaxed. Oh my gosh, thank you. That was, I think, the best movement that we could do.
No, I am honored to be able to practice with all of you tonight, and I hope that gave you at least a little sense of unity with your own mind and spirit and body, even if for a short moment.
Absolutely. Yes. I think everyone is feeling that same sense of calm and peacefulness. I think that we're all trying to achieve. Yeah. Thank you. So, Michelle, you are one of our Unite for Her providers.
Yes.
So those that are in our local program, can you let us know where our community could connect with you if they want to use their squares, or just connect with you on their own to continue, learn more about their own yoga practice?
Absolutely. So we are listed in the Unite for Her provider directory on the Unite for Her website in that document under the Bucks County grouping. And then you'll see, within the Bucks County and then yoga, you'll find Yoga Mazia, which is our studio. It's based out in Richboro off of Alms House Road. So it's I guess within Lower Bucks, a good central location, depending on where you are. And, or otherwise, you're free to send us an email, contact us. If you go to yogamazia.com, there's a contact form, and that will shoot me an email directly that we can then get back in touch with you as well. So I'm more than happy, and I can drop my email into the chat as well for everyone if they would like to. I invite you to reach out, even if you just have basic questions. I'm happy to provide that. To answer those questions.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And I just I'm sorry, I just added the link to your website as well into our chat.
Great. No, thank you. And of course, Sue and Erin, you have the slides, to feel free to share that as well.
Wonderful. I think we all really benefited from your slides. So I think that would be a great addition to the video that we will put on our Her Library tomorrow. So if I will put this ask out before we wrap up. If anyone has any final questions for Michelle, please feel free to come off of mute or just ask them, but know that you have access to her also. If you think of something later, or if you decide, you know what, that's, like she said, we can all do yoga. It is open to all of us. It is a practice that we can all benefit. And it is just that, it is a practice. It's not perfection. It's something that we can all do and incorporate.
Absolutely. Do it at your own pace. You can go as fast or as slow as you want, as short or as long as you want. It is really for you.
I love that. I love that. Well, Michelle, thank you for spending your time with us. Thank you for educating us and taking us through, I think, the most wonderful end to a day that we could possibly have. So we appreciate you for that benefit, and we appreciate your time. So be sure to check out her website, and again, reach out to her if you're in the Bucks County area. You have access to Michelle as part of our provider network. So we are so thankful for you.
Thank you.
So with that being said, I will conclude our speaker series for this evening. I am so thankful that everyone was able to join us tonight. Again, this recording will be on our Her library, likely as soon as tomorrow. And again, I want to give one final thanks to our sponsors that allow us to continue to bring topics and speakers like this to you each and every month. So big thanks to our presenting sponsor, West Pharmaceutical, as well as our supporting sponsors, Daiichi-Sanyko, Merck, Seagen, and Eli Lilly. So we are so grateful for them for continuing to support us, to support you. So hopefully you will join us next week for our Ask the Experts with Dana from Anna Ono, getting a little intimate with our bra fittings, but something we can all learn from as well. Again, that'll be next Thursday, 1 week from today, streaming live on our Facebook page, 1 p.m. Eastern time. That also will be recorded if you're not able to make it, but hopefully you will join us and she'll be ready to answer all of your questions about fittings and questions to ask when we're going out on our own. So with that, have an absolute wonderful Thursday. I hope everyone has a beautiful weekend. Maybe we'll all start incorporating a little bit of movement as we're sitting at our desks. I think we can all relate to that. So be safe, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening and your weekend. Take care.